All right, so exactly what's happened leading up to today? What we understand is that basically the moratorium on tolls has been lifted and that things are up and running smoothly again. Is that essentially it?
Yes, I mean, to a large extent, yes. You'll recall that the Lagos State government announced a suspension of tolling on the 29th of December last year. On the 14th of November this year, the governor of Lagos State, during his 2012 budget speech, announced that he had lifted the suspension. He left it to Lekki Concession Company to announce when we will commence. And on the 1st of December of this year, Lekki Concession Company, together with Lagos State Government, jointly held a press conference, and we announced to the public the commencement date of 18th of December.
All right, so what exactly led to that moratorium initially? Because many residents have said, you know, they understand the broad philosophy of a new road system, improving the roads, connecting the main city centre to residential areas. But they've said you haven't really delivered on a lot of those promises, that congestion is still rife. And then they've also complained about the costs of the tolls.
Okay, I think first and foremost, we would not agree with that characterization. And I think we all have to start with what Lekki Concession Company is required to do. We have a concession agreement, which requires us to develop road assets, and those road assets are done in road sections. And when we've achieved the substantial completion of the relevant road sections, which is certified by an independent engineer, we're entitled to commence tolling. Of course, the road itself is being built with a view to relieving congestion. And in addition to building the road, there's the maintenance of the same. We have various types of services, 24-hour incident management services, breakdown recovery, ambulance services, route patrols, toll-free helpline, none of which I know exists anywhere in this country where roads are concerned. And if you look at the hard realities today, on the road sections that have been completed, road users are reporting continuously a reduction in their journey times, in some cases up to 1.5 hours. So those are the hard facts. But we also recognize, nevertheless, that this being fairly novel, especially using the public-private partnership model, and, you know, coming at a time when we were facing elections, there's a lot of activity and agitation by people. I'm not saying that there isn't still some genuine concerns, and, you know, we can only do our best to answer those. And, you know, government, of course, has a responsibility as well to explain its policy and explain our role. So LCC is quite satisfied that we have fulfilled our contractual obligations and more, I dare say. And as our substantial completion certificate demonstrates, we have been entitled to commence tolling since last year. Let's
talk about the pricing, how you actually calibrate the costs for the investment, the maintenance, the services you provide, and the building costs that are still underway. Just reading anecdotally some Nigerian press, some people are saying that adding it all up, they're paying in the region of 48,000 naira per month. If you consider that the basic minimum wage in Nigeria is 18,000 naira, there's a huge discrepancy here.
I wouldn't say that. I think the first thing you've got to go back to is to say, well, how have they worked out the figure? Personally, I don't know how they've worked out the 48,000 naira a month. What we do recognize, nevertheless, is that many people have not really taken the time to look through the details of the pricing, you know, the price incentives and the discounts as well. And in certain cases, some reports I've heard, people quote prices that don't even exist anywhere in the regime. So the truth of the matter is that I think there's some misunderstanding. But here's a few bullet points people to think about. In the first instance, the availability of the alternative route means they don't have to use the road if they don't want to. But secondly, beyond just the standard toll tariffs that are publicly advertised, we've also publicly advertised price incentives. So, for example, if you use what we call the e-tag, which is our most advanced way of electronic toll payment, you straight away save 10% of that. It entitles you to like a frequent user discount. And that therefore means that the more you use the road, then your costs go down. So a standard saloon car that would pay 120 naira could, at the highest discount threshold, be only paying 43 naira, which is about 60 to 70% off the standard price. Now, regarding this discrepancy you talk about between, you know, the supposed average usage and the 18,000 naira minimum wage, very important to emphasize that I would say the vast majority of the people that fall within that 18,000 naira minimum wage actually get around using public transport buses. In South Africa, you call them taxis. Here we call them commercial Danfo buses. And commercial Danfo buses, just by virtue of being who they are, have a 47% discount straight off the standard tariff for their class of vehicle. And if they register for the e-tag and therefore get the frequent user discount, they can actually get discounts up to 70%. Now, we think this is a very attractive option, and it demonstrates we've actually had consideration for those people that are in that lower bracket.
Let's talk about your responsibilities and the responsibility of the local government in terms of this PPP that you're talking about. We know that obviously up until now, the Lagos state has been paying some of the shadow tolls. That's going to change, obviously. But to what extent do they bear the risk? To what extent do you charge them? How does this all work? And the lessons you've learned that other states could emulate?
Sure. Well, you know, obviously risks are shared whenever you get into a public-private partnership. There are some things that we do, principally around the financing, the design, you know, the construction, operation, maintenance, etc., of the road assets, and we provide the services, of course. You know, government very typically will focus on, you know, things such as clearing or requisitioning the right of way, keeping it free of encumbrances, dealing with settlement and compensation issues, and most importantly, not doing anything that would adversely affect our right to enjoy our concession rights, as well as to freely and properly operate the toll road. Now, the suspension of tolling naturally was an event that impinged upon our rights, and you know we have already spent all this money in line with our concession responsibilities. We have achieved the substantial completion certificate, and we had the right to toll. But you know, that being said, the reality is that change in projects is not unusual. At the same time, you want to ensure that if you make changes, you fully understand the consequences. So, you know, Lagos State government, you know, recognized its own responsibility in that regard and has paid some compensation. This was very, very important to us, because if it didn't happen, we probably would not have continued the project. I think other states have to learn sanctity of contract. Very important.